Hi, thank you for joining me today at the Intercontinental CISO Forum Africa Day. It is truly an honor for me to be here to participate in this event today, and I'm happy to speak specifically on the topic of achieving diversity in cybersecurity. My name is Carmen Corbin, and I am the head of counter cybercrime programming for Africa for UNODC's Global Cybercrime Program. Myself and my team are located in Dakar, Senegal, and we specifically work to raise awareness on cybercrime in Africa as well as around the world. Prior to joining UNODC, however, I was a prosecutor in the United States for over 11 years, and I specifically worked on prosecuting cybercrime. So I want to tell a brief story before I jump into my topic here from one of my own personal experiences and my own personal cases. Hopefully on your screen you're able to see what I'm showing, but it is a headline from an article that came out about a case of mine, and it says, "German man pleads guilty to sex tourism charges in Arizona." This case was one of my cybercrime cases, and I specifically was working with a number of different investigators on this case. What was almost shocking, however, was when the defendant was finally discovered, identified, and brought into a courtroom to face the criminal charges that he was facing for attempting to travel through the United States into Mexico to sexually abuse children as young as 5 years old. He comes into the courtroom and he sees that the detective who he had been talking to online, who he believed to be a co-conspirator in this crime, was a woman. It wasn't a man. And he was sure that that could not have possibly been possible because this person that he was talking to online had to have been a man. The way that this person talked to him and convinced him of different things, it had to have been a man. He understood the technical sides of the crime and the technology they were using to anonymize themselves. But in fact, it was a woman. The agent was a woman. And this woman that I worked with so closely as an investigator was able to crack this incredibly complex case because she had a different perspective. She worked with a team of wonderful investigators that included many different people, men and women from many different backgrounds. And together that team was able to identify this child abuser, this child molester who was abusing children potentially all over the world. It was their team that made this work. I'm going to show you 4 statements here on your screen. And if I read them really quickly, they say, "I cannot tell all of you girls apart, so I will call you all by the same name. Do you actually understand this technical information, or are you just pretending? I did not like that she told me what was wrong with my work, so I just decided not to work anymore. Women cannot really do this job. They're not strong enough." All 4 of these statements were made to me at some point during my career as a federal prosecutor at the United States Attorney's Office. They were not necessarily made by my colleagues, but they were made at some point, and maybe off the cuff, maybe not directly to show some sort of displeasure with my work, but they were said to me as me being a female working in a predominantly male job. I'm going to be here today, and I'm going to talk to you about the importance of diversity and why it is important and how we can move forward in achieving diversity in cybersecurity and cybercrime prevention. The main reason, the main take home I want you to take back with you after you've seen what I've said and contemplated what I've said is we need to do better. We need to do better in our fields in cyber to create a network rather than a pipeline of talent. We create a network of talent by including everyone, by including women and men from all backgrounds. That is how we create a network of talent that can compete with and stay ahead of the incredibly complex problems that we have in the world of cyber. So cyber attacks, I'm sure that you know, are significantly on the rise in Africa. Spyware and cyber attacks have skyrocketed this year, especially under the situation of COVID-19 and the pandemic, and more people being online. Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa have experienced millions of malware and other attacks between January and August, according to data from cybersecurity company Kaspersky. In some countries, these attacks have taken a new dimension, impersonating non-governmental organizations that are actually working on COVID-19 response. They are taking advantage of the situation that is currently happening around the world. Zimbabwe is reporting that the number of cyber attacks have grown 5 times during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is exposing Africa's limited digital awareness and capacity. And these cyber attacks, they can lead to breaches of national security secrets, theft of valuable sensitive data, for example, medical records, or also computer networks. They can be paralyzed under these systems. It can be a devastating event for some countries. And cyber attacks also in Africa have been specifically focused on maritime infrastructure. And this is critically important, particularly in Africa, where 90% of Africa's trade is seaborne. Also, part of that analysis, however, is that most ports and shipping companies are becoming more digital, as the world is in general becoming more digital. And this is of specific concern for Africa. A recent Institute for Security Studies report examined how cybersecurity is fast becoming an integral part of Africa's maritime security needs. And this new area must receive greater attention. These are all incredibly serious and complex threats, and they all require innovative solutions. So I'm showing a few graphs here that indicate the mobile economy in sub-Saharan Africa between 2019 and what is expected in 2025. Exponentially, the accessibility to the internet and the mobile economy is only going to grow in large amounts. Internet penetration as well. These are numbers from 2019, and Africa at this point looks high, but again, in 2020, it is probably even higher and probably is growing exponentially every single year. Women are seriously underrepresented in the field of cybersecurity. And in 2017, the share of women in cybersecurity in the United States was 14%, as compared to 48% in the workforce. The problem is even bigger outside of the United States. In 2018, women made up 10% of the cybersecurity workforce in the Asia-Pacific region, 9% in Africa, 8% in Latin America, 7% in Europe, and 5% in the Middle East. And women are even less well represented in senior and managerial positions in IT. Only 1% of female cybersecurity workers hold leadership positions. The low representation of women in cybersecurity is possibly linked to the broader problem of low representation of women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And in addition, women, and this is coming from my own background, women need to be more represented in law enforcement and criminal justice in general. Women make up only about 1 in 8 sworn police officers nationwide in the United States, and it's even significantly more reduced throughout the world. More women are needed to fight cybercrime, as women are disproportionately subjected to various forms of online abuse, especially women of specific religions, ethnic or racial groups, sexual orientation, certain economic status, and disabled women. An Amnesty International survey in 2017 found that about 1/4 of 4,000 women that were surveyed in the US, UK, Denmark, Sweden, Spain, Italy, and Poland had experienced some form of abuse online, at least once. In addition, 41% of those women who experienced online abuse feared for their personal safety because of the abuse and harassment. Amnesty found that Specifically in Africa, African women in particular are more likely to be targeted by hate speech and abusive language online. Women are often victims of cybercrime, more often than men. They receive bullying messages, threats of violence, and sexually explicit text messages, emails, images, and videos through dating sites, social media, and other online platforms, as well as discussion forums and instant messaging. Women are also the predominant targets of image-based sexual abuse, which involves, for example, the non-consensual creation, distribution, and threat to disseminate nude or sexual images to cause distress, humiliation, pain, or harm to the victim. The motivations underlying this form of abuse may be retribution, blackmail, extortion, control, sexual gratification, voyeurism, any of these things. And additionally, unfortunately, in my own experience as a prosecutor, I have learned that girls are much more often the victims of child sexual abuse and online sexual exploitation. Given that so many women and girls are victims of online crimes, it is critically important that there are more women in criminal justice jobs and cybersecurity, such as police, prosecutors, and judges who share their experiences and will be potentially more accessible. Now, no discredit to my male colleagues who do the same work that I do. However, in my experience, there have been instances where I had many cases where the victims were young girls. And I often felt that I could understand maybe slightly more easily their concerns and their concerns about their case, and that I could potentially communicate more easily and discuss these concerns with their parents. One reason for this disparity in the working world of cybercrime and also of cybersecurity is the disparity possibly of the societal view in that internet security and the criminal justice sector in general are jobs that only men do. There's really nothing inherent in the genre of these jobs or these work areas which predisposes men to be more apt to working in these fields. Also, women are generally not presented with opportunities in these areas, and that is also an obstacle to women joining these areas of the workforce. Organizations, companies often do not try to recruit women, and they don't try to encourage them to work in cybersecurity or law enforcement. And law enforcement agencies do not recruit, retain, and promote women at the same rate as they do men. There are often barriers that discourage women from seeking employment in these fields as well. For example, women in law enforcement often face obstacles ranging from fitness tests that focus more on muscle rather than on human skills to widespread harassment by some of their male colleagues. Representation of women is important in both of these professions, as women tend to offer different views and perspectives than men. And these underrepresented perspectives are essential to dealing with cyber risks. For example, in cybersecurity specifically, female leaders tend to prioritize important areas that men often overlook. There are three major points about diversity in our cybersecurity and cybercrime areas that are critically important and are reasons why we should work to create a diverse working groups. Diverse perspectives in your team. Research has shown that when your teams are diverse, they are able to move further at a faster pace. They're able to work on a project at a rate that is much faster and much more successful. Number two, complex problems require lots of different approaches to solve them. My example of the case that I talked about right at the beginning of this presentation, the defendant was shocked that a woman could figure out the system in which he was working to commit his crime. But in some ways, it was because of her different perspective. It was because of the way that her discourse and her way of looking at the problem that we were able to actually find, identify him, and stop his criminal acts that he was doing against children. This can be the same example in cybersecurity. Women, people of different backgrounds will have different perspectives that are necessary to achieve and find solutions to very complex problems that we face in the world of cyber. And finally, creating a network rather than a pipeline of talent in the system. I put this at the beginning of my presentation, and you'll see it again at the end because I think it's the most important. We need to work to create a network, not a pipeline, of talent. That is the only way that we will be able to achieve success in combating cybersecurity and cybercrime problems that we are experiencing across the globe. In the area of criminal justice, research has shown that women are less likely, at least in crime fighting, to face sustained allegations of excessive force than their male colleagues, and that female officers cost cities less in civil lawsuits and settlements for such incidents. They are subject to fewer complaints from citizens. And another study found that female police officers hurt suspects less. Policing is often about keeping communities safe, but it is also often about societal services, such as cases of domestic violence, dealing with people's mental health issues, and openness for victims, and negotiation. These require a complex team with different faces and different backgrounds. Some of the potential obstacles that can come with having a diverse team is potentially a team that includes many different people from different backgrounds and different experiences. They may not have a common vernacular, or there may be some power dynamics, different backgrounds that are coming in to play during a team's working situation. It also may have different experience levels for different people coming from different backgrounds. Ultimately, all of these, however, can be addressed through frequent interaction and with additional training. All of those obstacles or potential roadblocks are something that the team can move beyond and ultimately achieve success with all of the benefits that come from having a diverse team. To attract more women to cybersecurity and fighting cybercrime, governments, nonprofits, professional organizations, and trade associations, and the private sector must work together. Private and public partnership projects could help solve the problem in the long run. So I want to talk quickly about what UNODC is doing in Africa to try to play a vital role in encouraging women, girls, and others to pursue careers in cybersecurity and to fight crime. One of the major ways that we are working is in capacity building. In capacity building, we're working with law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges all across Africa, particularly in West Africa currently, to build capacity in the area of countering cybercrime, working in cybersecurity. And we make an effort to make sure that both our trainees and our trainers are diverse, people from different backgrounds, including women and men. We need to normalize the idea that both women and men, as well as people from all different backgrounds, can play a vital role in securing cyber systems and data and protecting our public and societies from cyber criminals. We also do a lot of work on raising awareness. And we do this in a number of different capacities, but specifically, one of the major things we've been doing, especially under the current situation with the pandemic, have been creating webinars where we are able to educate the public in a number of ways on cybercrime, what cybercrime looks like, what different things may be coming across a regular person's phone or social media accounts that could ultimately make them a victim and cause them to somehow be affected by a cyber criminal. These are two flyers from some different webinars that we've conducted this year. Both of them were in French. One was on sexting and the risks of sextortion, which is a serious and common problem here in West Africa right now. and also one on protecting children online. In addition, we've done a large campaign on protecting children online and cyber safety. We were able to do a video campaign where we released a number of educational videos in 3 different languages, English, French, and Portuguese, to try to cover as many countries as we could in the region, and reach as many citizens as we possibly could for understanding what the risks are online to children, educating parents, teachers, anyone who is potentially going to be having a conversation with a child on how to stay safe online. We've also partnered with a number of agencies and other governmental organizations to try to get the word out that women should be encouraged to get involved in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics studies, and also pursue careers in these fields, particularly in cybersecurity and cybercrime, countering cybercrime. We had a webinar just recently that was focused on encouraging women in this area, and we hope to conduct more of these activities down the road. All of these things are important to, again, normalizing the idea that women and diverse backgrounds are necessary for us to combat these larger issues that we have in cybersecurity and countering cybercrime across Africa, but honestly across the globe. Creating a network rather than a pipeline of talent. I come back to this again as really a final thought as to why this is important. I am part of a UNODC team that is around the world working to help equip people, police, prosecutors, and judges with the skills to investigate and prosecute cybercrime, money laundering, and terrorist financing. And we offer training and capacity building programs on how to investigate and prosecute cybercrime, and also how to, and we work to strive to ensure that women are becoming part and playing a more regular role in all aspects of cybersecurity and countering cybercrime. By promoting women working in these fields and showcasing their talents, we hope to encourage our partners to also view women as important actors in these fields. Increasing the participation of women in cybersecurity and the fight against cybercrime, and increasing the participation of a diverse background of people in these areas is good for business, it's good for society, it's good for women. We look forward to our cooperation with other agencies and other countries, again, in Africa and around the world, and with other organizations that are trying to highlight this issue, and that is really what our major goal will be in the next and coming years. I want to thank you for listening and for participating, and I believe that there may be an opportunity for me to take some questions. Let me see. All right, let me see if I can get that. Should I stop share? Is that helpful for me? Oh, there it is. There's the, okay. Okay, so I have one question that says, are you working with any initiatives to bring digital and cyber literacy to rural and remote communities? Yes, absolutely. One of the major projects I think that we are trying to do is, again, a lot of the awareness raising that I was discussing. But of course, one of our obstacles in a number of places here in Africa is a language barrier. So we are working hard with local partners to translate a lot of the activities that we're doing, whether they're in French or English, and actually translating them into local languages, and then working with community partners, such as community educators or community activists, to help and go out even further outside of the main cities to reach even a larger swath of the population, especially for understanding cybersecurity, as cell phones and mobile capability, honestly, is almost ubiquitous all throughout the country and all throughout Africa. All right, I have another question, which is, what advice would you give to someone starting out in cybersecurity to get involved with law enforcement? I think it depends on the location where you are, but I think one of the major things that from my own experience, before I was directly involved in law enforcement and being a prosecutor, I started volunteering. I started going to work and offer my services or my volunteerism to different organizations that were working in the field that I was interested in. And just so I could start to understand the lay of the land and how different actors work in this field of cybersecurity as well as countering cybercrime. That was one of the major things that ultimately launched me into fully developing an interest in the field and pursuing additional education and work in the field. Okay. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions. Thank you.